The transport ship broke through the clouds of Verath 7, and Park Tae-ho pressed his face against the window like a child. Below him stretched the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. It was massive. Buildings made of black stone and silver metal covered the land for miles. Training fields, combat arenas, and weapons ranges dotted the landscape. Ships of all sizes flew overhead. This was where the galaxy's greatest warriors were made. Tae-ho was 24 years old. He stood 175 centimeters tall and weighed 70 kilograms. By human standards, he was fit and healthy. By galactic standards, he was small, soft, and unremarkable. Humanity had only joined the coalition 12 years ago. They were the newest species, the weakest species. Most aliens looked at humans the way humans looked at mice. The ship landed with a gentle thump. Tae-ho grabbed his bag and walked down the ramp with the other recruits. His eyes went wide. The Gorvan were the first species he noticed. They were reptilian giants, standing 3 meters tall, with thick green scales and arms like tree trunks. Their teeth were sharp enough to bite through metal. Next came the Allori, insectoid creatures with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in every direction. They moved with terrifying speed, their exoskeletons clicking as they walked. Then there were the Velith, tall and elegant beings with pale blue skin and large black eyes. They were telepaths. They could read minds and move objects with thought alone. And then there was Tae-ho. Small, pink, fragile. A Gorvan recruit looked down at him and laughed. The sound was deep and rumbling. They let pets into the academy now? Tae-ho said nothing. He kept walking. The orientation hall was a massive dome made of crystal and steel. Thousands of recruits stood in neat rows, organized by species. Tae-ho found the human section. There were only 11 of them in the entire academy. A woman with short black hair and sharp eyes stood at the front of their small group. Her name was Kang Yuna, and she was the senior human cadet. She had survived 3 years in this place. "Keep your head down," she whispered to Tae-ho without looking at him. "Keep your mouth shut. Survive." Before Tae-ho could respond, the hall fell silent. A door at the far end opened, and the instructors entered. They were legends, warriors who had fought in 100 battles across 1,000 worlds. They walked with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. At their front was Senior Instructor Kavros, a Gorvan general with scars covering half his face. His left eye was replaced with a glowing red implant. He had personally killed over 300 enemies in combat. His name was spoken with fear across the galaxy. Kavros walked slowly through the rows of recruits, inspecting them. He nodded at the Gorvan with approval. He studied the Allori with respect. He acknowledged the Velith with a slight bow. Then he reached the humans. He stopped in front of Tae-ho. The general was so tall that Tae-ho had to crane his neck to look at his face. Kavros stared down at him with his one real eye, and his scarred lips twisted into a smile of disgust. "What is this?" Kavros asked loudly. His voice echoed through the hall. Every recruit turned to watch. Tae-ho stood straight. "Recruit Park Tae-ho, sir. Earth origin. Combat specialization requested." Kavros laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Combat specialization? You?" He reached down and poked Tae-ho's chest with one massive claw. No scales. No claws. No venom. No telepathy. No natural weapons of any kind. He looked at the other instructors and spread his arms wide. "The Coalition wastes resources on charity cases. This is not a warrior. This is just a useless pest." The hall erupted in laughter. Thousands of aliens laughed at the small human who dared to think he could fight. Tae-ho's hands tightened into fists. His jaw clenched. But he did not speak. He did not move. Kavros leaned down until his face was centimeters from Tae-ho's. His breath was hot and smelled of meat. "You will fail, little pest. You will break. And when you crawl home in shame, you will tell your species to never waste my time again." He straightened up and walked away. The laughter slowly died down. The orientation continued. Rules were explained. Schedules were distributed. Housing was assigned. Through it all, Teho stood perfectly still with his eyes forward. Later that night, Teho sat alone on his bunk in the worst housing block on campus. The walls were cracked. The heating did not work. Water dripped from the ceiling. The other human cadets had been assigned to different buildings. He was isolated, alone. This was not an accident. This was by design. Teho looked at his hands. They were small and soft compared to the claws of a Gorvan or the armored limbs of an Elori. He had no special powers, no genetic advantages. He was exactly what Kavros had said, a small, weak, useless creature. He thought about home, about Earth, about his mother who had cried when he left, and his father who had said he was proud, about the billions of humans who were counting on people like him to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Useless pest, he whispered to himself. Then he smiled. It was a strange smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found something to prove. Somewhere in his memory, he recalled a nature documentary he had watched as a boy. It was about an animal called the honey badger. Small, seemingly weak, but absolutely fearless. Honey badgers attacked lions. They fought snakes. They never gave up, no matter how big the enemy was. Scientists said they were the most fearless animals on Earth. Teho lay down on his thin mattress and closed his eyes. Okay, he said softly to the darkness. Let us see who breaks first. Outside his window, the twin moons of Verath 7 rose into the sky. A new day was coming. And with it, the real test would begin. The first week was designed to destroy him. Teho woke at 4 a.m. to find his uniform missing. Someone had taken it during the night. He ran to the training field in his sleeping clothes, arriving 20 minutes late. Instructor Kavros made him run 50 laps around the field, while the other recruits watched and laughed. His equipment began to malfunction. His training rifle jammed during target practice. His combat suit sparked and shocked him during drills. His food tasted wrong, and he spent one night vomiting in his bathroom, too sick to sleep. None of this was accident. He knew it. Everyone knew it. But no one said anything. During combat drills, his opponents showed no mercy. A Gorvan named Vorak was the worst. He was Kavros's favorite student, a massive reptile with arms thicker than Teho's entire body. In their first sparring match, Vorak broke 3 of Teho's ribs with a single punch. The medical officers healed him with advanced technology, but the pain stayed for days. Weak, Vorak said, standing over Teho's fallen body. Pathetic. Why do you not quit? Teho coughed blood and slowly pushed himself to his feet. Match is not over. Vorak broke 2 more ribs. The second week was worse. Instructor Kavros designed special exercises just for the humans. Endurance runs calibrated for species with 2 hearts. Teho had only 1 heart. He collapsed halfway through and had to crawl the rest of the distance. It took him 4 hours to finish a run that others completed in 30 minutes. Strength tests meant for beings with exoskeletons. Teho's muscles tore. His bones cracked. He failed every single test. But he never quit. The other recruits began to notice. At first, they had ignored him. Then, they had mocked him. Now they watched him with something strange in their eyes. Not respect. Not yet. But curiosity, and perhaps a small amount of confusion. Why does he keep getting up? An Elori recruit asked one day. Because he is stupid, another answered. Too stupid to know he is beaten. They started calling him the Pest. It was meant as an insult. A pest was something small and annoying, something that existed only to bother real creatures. But Teho heard the name and felt something like pride. Pests survived. Pests kept coming back. You could not kill a pest easily. Kang Yuna found him one night in the training hall. He was practicing combat moves alone, his body covered in bruises. She watched him for a long time before speaking. You are going to die here, she said. Teho did not stop practicing. Maybe. 4. Kavros wants you dead. Vorak wants you dead. Half the academy wants you dead. She stepped closer. Why do you not request a transfer? There is no shame in leaving. Teho finally stopped. He looked at her with tired eyes. If I leave, they win. They will say humans are weak. They will say we do not belong here. He shook his head slowly. I cannot let that happen. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. You are either very brave or very stupid, she said. Perhaps both. She took off her jacket and stepped onto the training mat. Come, let me teach you how humans fight. For the next 3 hours, Yuna taught Taeho techniques that were not in any official manual. Dirty tricks, weak points in alien anatomy, ways to use an enemy's strength against them. Humans had been fighting larger, stronger opponents for thousands of years on Earth. They had learned a few things. An Alori recruit named Threll began sitting with Taeho at meals. He was different from the others. He did not mock or attack. He simply watched with his compound eyes, studying Taeho like a scientist studying a strange new specimen. You confuse me, Threll said one day. How? Taeho asked, chewing his food. You are weak. This is obvious fact. But you do not behave like weak creature. Weak creatures run. Weak creatures hide. You do neither. Threll tilted his head. What are you? Taeho thought about this. I am human. That is not answer. It is the only answer I have. The third week brought the breaking point. Taeho was walking back to his housing block after evening training. The path was dark and empty. He heard footsteps behind him but did not turn. He knew who it was. Vorak stepped out of the shadows with 3 other Gorvan recruits. They surrounded Taeho in a circle. There was nowhere to run. Request a transfer, Vorak said. His voice was low and dangerous. Leave this academy. Never come back. Taeho looked up at the giant reptile. No. Vorak hit him. The punch sent Taeho flying into a wall. Before he could recover, the other Gorvans joined in. They beat him with fists and feet and tails. Bones broke. Blood flowed. Pain exploded through his entire body. It lasted 10 minutes. When it was over, Taeho lay on the ground in a pool of his own blood. His left eye was swollen shut. 3 teeth were missing. His right arm was bent at an impossible angle. He could not breathe without agony. Vorak knelt beside him. Do you understand now? Pest. You are nothing. You will never be anything. Go home. Taeho coughed. Blood sprayed from his lips. Slowly. Painfully. Impossibly. He turned his head and looked at Vorak with his one good eye, and he smiled. Is that all you have got? He whispered. Vorak went still. Something flickered in his reptilian eyes. It was not anger. It was not amusement. It was fear. The Gorvan stood quickly and walked away. His companions followed in confused silence. Later that night, Vorak went to Instructor Kavros. Not to report an attack, but to deliver a warning. There is something wrong with that human, he said. Something very wrong. Kavros listened. And for the first time, a small doubt crept into his mind. In the medical bay, Taeho lay unconscious, while machines healed his broken body. His face was peaceful. His lips were still curved in that strange, unsettling smile. The Pest was not breaking. The Pest was just getting started. The announcement came on the first day of the 6th week. All recruits gathered in the main hall as Instructor Kavros stepped onto the stage. His scarred face showed no emotion, but his voice carried across the room like thunder. Tactical Assessment Week begins tomorrow, he said. You will be dropped into the Korath wilderness. Alone. No weapons. No equipment. No communication. You will survive for 72 hours and retrieve a beacon from the central zone. Those who fail will be expelled from this academy. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Korath wilderness was famous across the galaxy. It was a jungle planet filled with deadly predators, poisonous plants, and terrain that could kill in 100 different ways. Many recruits had died there in previous years. Kavros smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Only the strong will survive. The weak will be removed from my academy. His eye moved to where the humans stood. Permanently. That night, Yuna came to Taeho's housing block. Her face was serious. The Korath wilderness has a survival rate of 60% for Gorvan recruits, she said. For humans, it is less than 20%. 2 human cadets died there last year. Teho nodded slowly. What do I need to know? Yuna spent 3 hours telling him everything. The predators to avoid. The plants that were safe to eat. The water sources that were not poisoned. Teho listened carefully and remembered every word. Threll also visited. The Alori brought something wrapped in cloth. A gift, Threll said, unwrapping it. Inside was a small knife made of volcanic glass. I made it myself. Against the rules. But rules are for those who do not want to survive. Teho took the knife. Why are you helping me? Threll's compound eyes glittered. Because I want to see what you will do. You are the most interesting thing in this academy. The next morning, transport ships carried all the recruits to the Korath wilderness. They were dropped at random points across the jungle. Each one alone. Teho landed in thick vegetation near a river. The air was hot and wet. Strange sounds filled the forest. He could see nothing but green in every direction. The hunt had begun. For the first 12 hours, Teho moved carefully. He avoided open areas. He stayed near water but never drank from stagnant pools. He found edible roots and berries based on Yuna's teachings. He did not sleep. This was his first advantage. Humans could function without sleep for days when necessary. Other species needed rest. Their bodies demanded it, but humans had evolved as persistence hunters on Earth, chasing prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. Teho's ancestors had run animals to death across the African plains. That endurance was written in his DNA. On the second day, he found tracks. Gorvan footprints heading toward the central zone. He followed them. This was his second advantage. Humans were not the strongest, they were not the fastest, but they were among the best trackers in the galaxy. Pattern recognition, logical deduction, the ability to read signs and make predictions, these were human specialties. He found the Gorvan recruit on the morning of the third day. The reptile had established a defensive position on a hill, guarding his beacon. He was big and strong, and heavily armed with makeshift weapons. A direct attack would be suicide, so Teho did not attack directly. He spent 6 hours circling the position, learning the Gorvan's patterns. When did he eat? When did he patrol? When did he look away from certain angles? Teho watched and learned and waited. That night, while the Gorvan slept, Teho crept into the camp. He made no sound. He left no trace. He took the beacon and disappeared into the jungle before the reptile even stirred. One beacon secured. But Teho was not finished. On his way to the extraction point, he encountered a predator. It was called a Korath stalker, a creature the size of a small car with 6 legs, armored skin, and jaws that could crush stone. It had been following him for an hour. Most species would run. The Gorvan would try to fight it with strength. The Alori would try to escape with speed. The Velith would try to confuse it with telepathy. Teho did something different. He turned and charged directly at the creature, screaming at the top of his lungs. The stalker froze. This was not normal prey behavior. Prey ran. Prey hid. Prey did not attack with insane aggression. The predator's brain could not process what was happening. Teho swung his volcanic glass knife and slashed the creature's nose. Blood sprayed. The stalker roared in pain and confusion. And Teho kept attacking. He screamed louder. He slashed again. He threw rocks. He made himself seem larger and more dangerous than any creature his size had a right to be. The stalker retreated. It was not badly hurt, but it was deeply confused. This small pink thing was not worth the trouble. There was easier prey in the jungle. High above, monitoring drones recorded everything. In the observation room, instructors watched in stunned silence. "What is that thing?" a Velith instructor whispered. Kavros said nothing. His claws dug into the armrest of his chair. Another instructor pulled up files on Earth fauna. "They call it a honey badger response," she said. "Aggression as survival." Some Earth creatures attack predators much larger than themselves because the predator does not expect resistance. The confusion creates an opportunity to escape or win. That is insane, Kavros growled. No, the Velith said softly, watching Teho move through the jungle with terrifying determination. That is human. Teho reached the extraction point with 4 hours to spare. He carried not one beacon, but 4. He had stolen 3 from larger recruits who had made the mistake of underestimating him. When the final results were announced, Park Teho, the useless Pest, had placed 4th out of 200 recruits. The academy went silent. Something had changed. Everyone could feel it. The small, weak human, who should have washed out in the first week, was still standing. He was more than standing. He was winning. And somewhere deep in Instructor Kavros's mind, a dangerous thought began to grow. The Pest had to be eliminated, by any means necessary. The message arrived 3 days after the wilderness assessment. It was delivered by an official courier drone, a small floating machine that spoke in a cold mechanical voice. Recruit Park Teho. You are hereby summoned to the Hall of Trials. Senior Instructor Kavros has invoked the challenge of worth against you. You have 24 hours to respond. Teho read the message twice. Then he read it a 3rd time. Yuna found him an hour later in the training hall. Her face was pale with fear. You cannot accept, she said immediately. The challenge of worth is an ancient tradition. An instructor can question any recruit's right to continue training. The recruit must face the instructor in single combat. She grabbed his arm. Kavros has killed in these challenges, Teho. 7 recruits over his career. He is not trying to test you. He is trying to murder you legally. Teho pulled his arm free gently. If I refuse, what happens? You are expelled from the academy. Dishonorably. You can never return. And humanity's reputation? Yuna was silent. They both knew the answer. If Teho ran from this challenge, it would prove everything the galaxy believed about humans. Weak. Cowardly. Unworthy of respect. There has to be another way, Yuna insisted. There is not. Teho walked to the window and looked out at the academy grounds. Somewhere out there, Kavros was preparing to kill him. I will accept the challenge. The next morning, Teho stood before the Hall of Trials and spoke the formal words of acceptance. His voice did not shake. His hands did not tremble. Across the chamber, Kavros smiled like a predator that had cornered its prey. The challenge will take place in 3 days, the officiating judge announced. In the Grand Arena. Standard combat rules apply. The fight ends when one party yields, is incapacitated, or dies. The word hung in the air, dies. News spread across the academy within hours. By evening, it had reached every corner of the coalition. A human had accepted a death challenge against one of the most decorated warriors in galactic history. Bets were placed. The odds were 1,000 to 1 against Teho. Some betting houses refused to even take the wagers because the outcome seemed so certain. That night, Threll came to Teho's room carrying a data chip. I stole this from the Academy archives, the Alori said. It contains every recording of Kavros's combat performances for the past 30 years. Every fight. Every technique. Every victory. Teho took the chip. This is treason. If they catch you, you will be expelled, maybe executed. Teho. Maybe executed. Threll's compound eyes gleamed. I know. Watch the recordings. Learn his patterns. It is your only chance. Yuna arrived an hour later. The 3 of them huddled around a small screen and began to watch. Kavros was terrifying. In fight after fight, he destroyed his opponents with brutal efficiency. His speed was incredible for a creature so large. His strength could shatter bones with a single blow. His experience gave him an almost supernatural ability to predict his opponent's moves. This is impossible, Yuna whispered after watching the 10th recording. He has no weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses, Teho said quietly. We just have to find them. They watched until dawn. Then they watched more. Teho made notes. He drew diagrams. He replayed certain moments dozens of times. studying every detail. On the second day, he found something. There, he said, freezing a recording. Kavros was fighting an Alori warrior. For just a moment, after a specific type of attack, his left side was exposed. It was tiny. It lasted less than half a second. But it was there. That is nothing, Yuna said. You cannot exploit that. I can try. They found 2 more small patterns. A slight hesitation after certain combinations. A tendency to favor his right eye, leaving a small blind spot on his left. Minor flaws that no opponent had ever noticed because Kavros killed them too quickly to matter. On the night before the challenge, Yuna came to him alone. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. He will kill you, she said. I have watched those recordings 100 times now. Even with the patterns. Even with everything we found. He will kill you. Tejo sat on his bed and looked at her calmly. Probably. Then why? Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this? No one would blame you for refusing. You have already proven more than anyone expected. You survived the academy. You placed 4th in the wilderness assessment. You have done enough. Tejo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. When I was a child, my father told me a story. He said that humans have always been weak. We have no claws, no armor, no venom. Every predator on Earth was stronger than us, faster than us, more deadly than us. He looked at his hands. But we survived. Not because we were the strongest, but because we never stopped fighting, never stopped adapting, never stopped getting back up. No matter how many times we were knocked down, he met her eyes. Kavros thinks he has beaten me. He thinks this challenge is already over. He thinks I will walk into that arena and die like every other creature he has faced. A small smile crossed his face. He has never fought a human before. Not really. He does not know what we are capable of. Yuna stared at him. And what are we capable of? Tejo's smile widened. Anything. She left without another word. But at the door, she paused and looked back. Win, she said. For all of us. The door closed. Tejo was alone. He did not sleep that night. He sat in silence and thought about Earth. About humanity. About everything his species had survived across 1,000,000 years of evolution. Ice ages. Plagues. Wars. Extinction events. Again and again, they had been knocked down. Again and again, they had gotten back up. Tomorrow, he would face the greatest challenge of his life. And he was not afraid. The honey badger never feared the lion. The Grand Arena was the oldest structure in the academy. It was a massive coliseum that could hold 50,000 spectators. Today, every seat was filled. Recruits, instructors, officials, and diplomats from across the galaxy had come to watch. Camera drones hovered in the air, broadcasting the event to billions of viewers throughout Coalition space. In the center of the arena, 2 figures stood facing each other. Instructor Kavros wore ceremonial combat armor that had seen 100 battles. His scales gleamed under the arena lights. His cybernetic eye glowed red. He stood 3 meters tall and weighed over 400 kilograms. He was a living weapon. Park Tejo wore a simple training uniform. He had no armor, no weapons. He stood 175 centimeters tall and weighed 70 kilograms. To the watching galaxy, he looked like a child facing a monster. The officiating judge raised his hand. The challenge of worth will now begin. Combat ends when one party yields, is incapacitated, or dies. Begin. Kavros moved first. He crossed the distance between them in 3 massive strides and swung his clawed fist at Tejo's head. The blow was fast enough to break the sound barrier. If it connected, it would reduce Tejo's skull to powder. But Tejo was not there. He had studied thousands of hours of recordings. He knew exactly how Kavros opened every fight. He dove to the left, rolled, and came up running. Kavros pursued. Punch after punch missed by centimeters. Teho was constantly moving, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. The crowd began to murmur. This was not how challengers usually fought. They stood and died. This human was running. "Coward!" Kavros roared. "Stand and face me." Teho did not respond. He kept moving. The first exchange lasted 5 minutes. Kavros landed nothing. But Teho had not attacked either. He was just surviving. Running. Dodging. Then Kavros caught him. A backhand blow struck Teho's side and sent him flying across the arena. He hit the ground hard and rolled to a stop. Blood poured from his mouth. At least 2 ribs were broken. The crowd cheered. This was what they had come to see. The Pest crushed. But Teho got up. He wiped the blood from his lips and faced Kavros again. His body screamed with pain. He ignored it. Kavros attacked with renewed fury. His fists and claws became a storm of violence. Teho was hit again and again. His left arm broke. Deep gashes opened across his chest and back. Blood covered the arena floor, but he did not fall. Every time Kavros knocked him down, he got back up. Every wound he took, he kept fighting around. The crowd grew quiet. This was not entertainment anymore. This was something else. Something disturbing. Something that none of them had ever seen before. 20 minutes passed. Kavros was breathing hard now. He was not injured, but the constant attacks had drained his energy. No opponent had ever lasted this long against him. Teho circled him slowly. His body was destroyed. Blood poured from a dozen wounds. His left arm hung useless at his side. One eye was swollen completely shut, and he was smiling. "What are you?" Kavros growled. There was uncertainty in his voice now. Fear. Teho said nothing. He was watching. Waiting. Then Kavros made the move that Teho had been waiting for. A specific combination of attacks that the recordings had shown again and again. Left strike, right strike, overhead slam. The overhead slam came down, and for just half a second, Kavros's left side was exposed. Teho moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. His good arm shot out and struck the precise spot where Gorvan anatomy was weakest. A nerve cluster beneath the 4th rib. It was a blow that should have been impossible for a human to land. It was a blow that required perfect timing, perfect positioning, and perfect technique. Teho had practiced it 10,000 times in the past 2 days. Kavros screamed in pain and staggered backward. His left arm went numb. For the first time in the fight, he was hurt. The crowd went completely silent. Teho pressed forward. He was operating on pure instinct now, pure desperation. He attacked the wounded side again and again. Each blow was weak by Gorvan standards, but targeted with surgical precision at vulnerable points. Kavros stumbled, fell to one knee. His eyes were wide with disbelief. This could not be happening. This was impossible. Kavros reached for his belt. His claws found a hidden weapon, a blade made of razor-sharp metal. It was forbidden in formal challenges. It was a killing weapon meant for assassination. He did not care anymore. The Pest had to die. He lunged at Teho with the blade aimed at his heart. Teho saw it coming. His body moved without conscious thought. His good hand shot up and caught the blade, stopping it centimeters from his chest. Blood poured from his palm as the edge cut deep into his flesh. The pain was unimaginable. He did not care. He headbutted Kavros with every ounce of strength he had left. The impact shattered the Gorvan's snout. Green blood exploded across Teho's face. Kavros roared in agony and dropped the blade. Teho caught it with his bleeding hand. He held the point to Kavros's throat. The arena was silent. 50,000 spectators held their breath. Billions of viewers across the galaxy stared at their screens in shock. The useless Pest had won. "Yield," Teho said. His voice was barely a whisper. He could feel darkness creeping at the edges of his vision. He was moments from collapsing. Kavros looked up at him. The general's eyes were filled with hatred and disbelief and something else now. Something he had never felt before in his entire long life. Respect. "I yield," Kavros said. Teho dropped the blade. His legs gave out. He collapsed onto the arena floor as medical teams rushed toward him. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was a sound. It started small, just a few voices. Then it grew. It became a roar. It became thunder. The arena was chanting, "Honey Badger, Honey Badger, Honey Badger." 6 months later, Park Tae-ho stood on the training field of the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. Scars covered his arms and chest. His left hand still ached when the weather changed, but he stood tall in the uniform of a full instructor. A new class of recruits had arrived that morning. Among them were 50 humans, the largest group ever accepted into the program. They looked around with wide eyes, just as Tae-ho had done on his first day. A young Gorvan recruit pointed at Tae-ho and whispered to his companion, "Who is that?" The companion, a senior cadet who had witnessed the arena battle, answered quietly, "That is the Honey Badger. The human who defeated Kavros. The human who changed everything." The young Gorvan frowned. "He is so small. How did he win?" The senior cadet thought for a moment. Then he shook his head. "Because honey badgers do not care how big you are. They do not care how strong you are. They do not care about anything except winning." He watched Tae-ho begin the morning drills, running alongside the new recruits, as if he were one of them. "And if you are foolish enough to corner one, they will tear down the entire arena to survive." Somewhere across the galaxy, a nature documentary was being updated. A new entry had been added to the section on Earth fauna. Humans, see honey badger, and the galaxy learned to never underestimate the pest again.